Hey, we're here today with Figment and Secret, talking about all things Secret Network. From Figment side, we have Andy and Gavin, and then representing different entities in the Secret ecosystem, we have Tor and John. So the point today is to really learn about what's going on with Secret, what's next, and how people can get involved. So I'll kick it over to you, Tor and John, to introduce yourselves, and let's hear what you're up to.
Thanks guys. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is John. I am one of the co-founders of Enigma and I lead product. So most of the things I focus on is what kind of applications can be built on the Secret network, Enigma as a development team behind the Secret network, what we should be prioritizing to get adoption on the Secret network.
Great.
And I'm Tor. I'm a founder at Secret Foundation. We're a rather unique organization whose primary purpose is to accelerate the global adoption of privacy-centric open source tech like Secret Network. And we have a particular focus on community governance, education, awareness initiatives, things like that, anything that gets us closer to the goal of end users actually using these applications versus just building them and kind of hoping people show up. So between, I think, the foundation, Enigma, and all of the other contributors to the Secret ecosystem, we have a pretty holistic approach to how we want to see adoption of our technologies. And obviously, we're very aligned on the ethos of thinking that privacy is essential to the global adoption of this type of tech.
Got it. That makes sense. So I assume privacy is a word we'll be saying quite a bit today. And so maybe we can kind of just jump in instead of talking the abstract, maybe let's go right into some use cases to kind of get people thinking in the right headspace. What are some things that you've seen people building with Secret or you want to be seen? Or what are some of the immediate use cases that kind of come to mind or things you'd like to see?
Yeah, I think there are three big areas that I'm personally excited about. One is we're focusing on a DeFi ecosystem where front running is not possible and there is some level of privacy. So we can get to that in more detail. The second use case is around what we call access control. The concept of allowing content monetization on Web3. And the last thing that excites me is around multiplayer gaming applications, things like poker, where there's a secret, your hand, the deck. So those are three big areas that really excite me.
Yep. And something to emphasize, since we're talking about these use cases, is that we do see Secret Network as this sort of privacy-centric sandbox where in each of these verticals, like John is explaining, there are just so many possibilities for how you could pull the pieces together. We're also focused on interoperability with other ecosystems, so we don't see Secret as sort of a universe unto itself. Like we're very focused on how are we going to interoperate with the Ethereum universe, with the different Tendermint chains. So that's really exciting to us as well as seeing these use cases not only like come to life on Secret, but also hook into and expand all these other ecosystems, bringing privacy to all of the public chains that are obviously struggling to bring privacy to their users just because of blockchain's inherent limitations.
That makes sense. So let's keep on the path of sort of trying to demystify things and try to speak as plainly as possible at the beginning before we start building up from there. So how does this work? How does a developer interact? How do you add privacy? What are you adding it to? And sort of as simple as possible, what does this look like? What does someone need to do to start working with privacy in Secret?
Sure. So from a developer standpoint, we have our smart contracting language. That's a Rust-based language that compiles into WebAssembly. So if you are a developer, you just write contracts in a different language instead of Solidity, you use Rust. And other than that, like it's pretty much similar to building applications on Ethereum. There are minute differences, but I think it's too much detail for that. As to how the network provides privacy is, we're running our virtual machine inside a trusted execution environment. So as you guys know, because you're validating in the mainnet, validators need to run trusted execution environments enabled nodes. And what we do is we use a set of, let's say, software and hardware encryption together to ensure that when an end user is interacting with a contract, the protocol is able to have some communication such that the end user can encrypt the inputs that he has. So say like, the end user wants to do something like a Uniswap, the amount they want to trade, all those would be inputs. The end user can send them an encrypted way to the network, and through some software cryptography, we can get into more detail, this input is only decrypted inside the enclave, so the trusted execution environment of a validator, where the validator cannot really access this input. And that's how we get privacy.
Okay, so let me see if I can recap it. So developers will use smart contracts. Those will sort of execute in a Cosmos SDK-based chain. And the way it works, there's, like you said, there's a lot of technical detail on how it works, but inputs and outputs can be private or obfuscated. And so that makes sense. Do you imagine that people will build brand new applications on Secret to start with? They'll add privacy to existing applications. How will that work on other chains? What's sort of the ideas with go-to-market and where you see really things starting off?
Sure. So I think there are, I think both exist, and I'm just going to talk through each of them. I believe adding privacy to existing applications and existing use cases that is adoption is the fastest way to get to adoption, and that's what we really care about. And in order to achieve that goal, what we are doing as the Enigma development team is we are planning on building certain DeFi application with interoperability to other ecosystems like Ethereum and Cosmos world. And our goal with that is to provide transaction privacy, application privacy. Let's get into that in more detail. And then there is this new set of applications that are not really possible right now. One is this concept of content monetization. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with, but there's a project called Audius. It's a decentralized Spotify, and they have a lot of traction. I think they have almost 150,000 song listens a day, which is very impressive in the blockchain ecosystem. And right now, they have no way of providing their artists a way to monetize their content. So we're in deep discussion with them on how to facilitate that. We built a POC for this in a recent hackathon, like HackSF, that was with Filecoin and ETH Global, which demonstrates that we could do that. So that's like a brand new application that we don't really see today. And you guys were in the testnet. We had like a very like a proof of concept poker game that I believe you guys played as well. So those are like new things that I think will pick up as well.
That makes sense. And then Tor, from a foundation perspective, you might have a little bit different lens than the Enigma team. How are you thinking about sort of the initial use cases and some of the go-to-market?
I think we have a very similar vision in terms of like the product strategy, and really the foundation exists to support that product strategy by finding the end users who are going to interact with those applications and getting these early POCs and beta cases into the hands of real world users. So if there's people who are already active in the DeFi space, what we want to do is get these kinds of applications into their hands. If there's people who are artists already creating in the the NFT universe or digital music universe, like we want to be able to get them hands on with the products as well. So it's nice to, like, we don't have any sort of differing vision. I think the development teams and the product teams and like adoption focused orgs like the foundation, we're all in strong alignment. We're just kind of picking up different pieces of the process. So nothing really to add to what John has laid out in terms of the use cases. I have my own personal excitements about everything. I would love to see more use cases, for example, around NFTs. And I'm a musician myself, so I'm really excited about anything that we can do with Audius or digital monetization. I did some research during my MBA into use of blockchain for digital rights management. So everything is fascinating to me, but like John is saying, like the most important thing is like, can we get this into the hands of real users, get feedback, iterate quickly, and find what's going to get adoption and make it privacy centric.
I'm curious to know how you anticipate initial use of Secret Network. Will people be people will be developing their own contracts, but what if after the Stargate launch, we have interoperability? If I just want to have privacy, like if I just want to have some of my assets become private, can I pass them through your network and then come out with private assets on the other end?
Yeah, so let me take that. The quick answer is yes. So to me, like privacy on existing asset, like we kind of had two use cases. One is to add privacy to existing things, and one was new. So now we're talking about adding privacy to existing solutions. So that's, in our opinion, requires bridges to other ecosystems. We're working on an Ethereum bridge, and we all know that Stargate is coming and IBC will be functional. So when that happens, yes, other assets in Ethereum and Cosmos ecosystem will be able to become private. The way that will happen is we've recently built a token standard that we call, the name is up for debate still, but the whole idea is it's an ERC20-like construct where you're able to issue tokens with a smart contract. And because the smart contracts in the secret network have encrypted inputs, state, and outputs, you can imagine any, let's say, token that's minted with this standard becomes a privacy token. And our goal is to stay, when IBC is live, and we want to move a stable coin from the Terra network to the secret network. The minting on the secret network happens with the secret token standards, and as a result, we end up with a privacy token. Do you feel like do you have a question?
Yeah, I've seen a lot. I didn't want to interrupt you though. If there was more that you had on your mind.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I was gonna talk a bit more about timelines, but on the Cosmos front, we're talking with the Terra team. They have a product called Chai, which is like a Venmo kind of product, and they do a lot of merchant processing in South Korea. And one problem that they're facing is merchants on their platform now are leaking a lot of information to their competitors about how much they're selling, what time they're selling, what location they're selling, and it's been an issue that was brought to their attention that they have to deal with. So we are working, or we're scoping, and we will start working on a testnet POC with Terra, so that we can bring some of their stable coins to the secret network and see how that works. Assuming that becomes successful, we would love to actually do it with Chai going forward. And then similarly, we'll the first use case when we have our Ethereum bridge built will be around, okay, now you can bring your ERC20 or Ethereum assets, not NFTs, but have these private transactions. NFTs can take place in the future. We're just not ready for that yet.
Right, it makes sense. So we've seen, especially in DeFi and this liquidity mining and all this sort of the activity, we've seen a lot of high value volume move. And in this case, I assume that the secret network would be securing the value. Like when you mint the private token on the secret chain, the chain's now securing your assets elsewhere, right?
Yeah, so the concept would be you're locking your ETH on a contract on Ethereum, and that contract can only be, so it's a multi-sig system, and that contract can only take inputs from a multi-sig committee. And what would happen is, yes, the ETH would be locked there, and then we would be minting new assets on the secret network. And if you burn those assets on the secret network, the multi-sig committee I mentioned earlier would basically unlock your ETH from the contract that's on the Ethereum side.
So if there's a lot of demand for privacy, which I imagine that there probably would be, there aren't really any other competing options right now to get that sort of the privacy that Secret Network is offering. We could see a lot of value flow into the Secret Network. And immediately what comes to mind is that there's the potential for more value to be secured by the network than it is securing the network. Is that something that we could see?
That would be a nice problem to have. But I mean, yeah, totally. I think honestly, the way it's going to play out is I think we're first going to see people using it because of the front running issue. And to us, like the privacy preserving transaction with ETH assets is just like a stepping stone. We want to deliver fast and deliver something new rather than just like building a long time. And the second thing we want to focus on is something like an AMM where there's liquidity that's provided on the secret network, swaps that are private. I think that's going to take place, or the reason that's going to take place is going to be around front running. I was talking to some early ETH people who are doing a lot of liquidity, providing a lot of liquidity in different like Balancer, Uniswap, all these, and like they are mentioning that now that people know who they are, they really are trying to front run them on every transaction, and that's not really good for them. So I think we'll see both like front running and privacy just push assets to the secret network.
One thing to add to that, just to directly respond to what Gavin's raising around like value securing the network versus value locked in the network. I mean, the nice thing about secret network is like we already know what the function of the coin is, what secret is and does, right? It's used for staking, it's used for governance, it's also used for transactional and computational fees on the network. So if there is demand for the network, it ends up back in the actual like valuation of the network. And it's like to utilize the secret contracts, you're interacting with the network, paying in secret. To stake in the network, it's with secret. And the incentives right now are so strong in the network to begin staking and to get returns that either as a validator or as a delegator, you're hoping that also adds to network security by already having a substantial portion of circulating secret locked up and bonded in the network. So again, as John is saying, aspiring to the good problems, right? Like we're very concerned with getting usage on the network and getting value into the system. I'm not as concerned about then the system then going and not being able to reflect that value because of the way that the token's utility is structured.
That makes sense to me. How does the secret staking the secret token, like how does it capture, or even outside of staking, like how do you anticipate the secret token will capture value aside from, I mean, I know that a lot of the networks use new issuance as a way of kind of bootstrapping, but ultimately I think the idea is to go beyond that.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to say anything beyond what I'm saying, John, like specifically around, again, I think it comes down to like interacting with the secret contracts themselves and like demand for secret as gas in the network. Yeah,
that's primarily the main use case. And I think that's like one thing that's also interesting is with these bridges, it's going to be possible to do yield farming in a different way, where you can do yield farming in a staking assets rather than a governance token whose purpose is like not really clear. We think that's an interesting approach. So in the option I mentioned, you can start with say something like DAI, switch to the secret network, and if you want to go short DAI, long secret, then you can participate in the staking economy. I think right now you make around 30% or something of that sort. So I think it opens different value propositions, and I think there will be people who would be interested in tapping into these opportunities.
Great, thanks. So I'm kind of curious to know a bit more about how the front running prevention works.
Sure. So the way front running takes place today is when I send a transaction to the mempool, and mempool is where the transactions get pooled and by miners then take them and put them into blocks. Anyone, this could be like an attacker, or it could be an actual miner, sees what transactions are in the mempool and what's going to be added to the block. And what they do is they enter their own transaction either with higher gas if they're not a miner, or they can, if they're a miner, they can just put their transaction before that transaction. And what that does is basically the attacker profits at the expense of the normal, of the regular transaction person. So like, let's think of this example. If I'm going to sell an asset on Uniswap, that is going to decrease the price of the asset in Uniswap. So knowing that, I can add my transaction ahead of that transaction, and both transactions will take place in the same block, but maybe I buy before that and then sell after. So that's kind of how it works. In our network, because user inputs are encrypted, there is not really a mempool that an attacker or a validator can observe. And that's a way to alleviate the problem of front running.
Okay, that makes sense. So one of the things we're looking at is, now that the network is live, one of the things, like says, it sort of takes a village to raise a blockchain. And so what are the different parties involved here? We talked a bit about, we mentioned validators. You mentioned maybe some of the developers. Are there any special roles in Secret, or does it look like more like a standard proof of stake network? Who are the people that you're looking to bring on board or get involved?
Tor, I'll take this.
Yeah, I can talk about this from the foundation's perspective. Like I said, we have less of a focus on, well, I mean, we're focused on the entire ecosystem, right? So when we think about our major stakeholders in the network, we always break it down the same way, which a lot of networks do, into like validators, and then developers, and then like the broader audience of end users. And when I say end users, I mean end users of Secret applications, or people who are delegating in the network, participating in governance, and so on. So we've already talked a little bit about like the validator stakeholders in the network, and we're exceedingly happy, I would say, with the validator adoption we've seen so far. And obviously, like some of our dream partners are supporting the network in terms of people who are like extremely experienced with operating validators, contributing to network tooling. Obviously, Figment at the top of that list, I would say. So we're very happy about that. When it comes to developer adoption, that's kind of what John is talking about, like onboarding people with building their own Secret applications, or integrating some of the building blocks from Secret Network into those applications. That's a community I think we're starting to concern ourselves with focusing on in the last quarter of this year, because now that Secret contracts are live on mainnet, that's a lot more tangible than telling people it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Now they see that like they can jump into the sandbox and play themselves. But it's that last audience of like the broad community engagement where we are trying to create more tiers of stakeholders by involving them directly in governance of the network. So to that regard, we have on-chain governance similar to other Tendermint chains as a delegated proof of stake network. So we've already had about 20 proposals or so pass in the network, and it's been everything from signaling proposals around the foundation, but also to like on-chain governance, on-chain parameters, like the inflation rate has shifted over time. We installed a new module for funding the foundation directly. So there's already very active on-chain governance. What we're trying to focus on also is how do we then integrate this with off-chain governance for the network. So we've established some committees as a community behind Secret Network, and there's 5 main ones, which I can mention here. It's the governance committee, which is sort of the meta committee concerning itself with governance of the network and committee governance. There's the education committee, which creates content concerning the network. There's the awareness committee, which helps then disseminate those educational materials and build connections with other communities in the ecosystem. The infrastructure committee that does a lot of the research around like compliant hardware, cloud hosting solutions, Sentry nodes, etc. And then there's the developer committee, which is focused around developer adoption, documentation, and so on. So we're providing paths for the community to participate on any of these committees. We're also establishing committee leaders who are, people from throughout the ecosystem, whether it's someone at the foundation or someone at Enigma or any of the other participants in the ecosystem. So somebody from Figment obviously could lead one of these committees or just be contributing actively to any of these committees. And the idea is because those committees are focused and they have very tangible products like an ongoing list of XGX compliant devices, for example, or like steadily improving documentation over time. We just started a new initiative where a joint effort between the education and awareness committees, we're going to be open sourcing the Secret Network website. So we're excited to see all of that come. I think that's the next step for us, is like we're trying to break down the barriers to participating for people who are not like traditionally like developer skill sets in the ecosystem, but have a ton to say about how this project should grow and be adopted. And then we want to make sure that those people are engaged and resourced so that they can help drive results for the network. We're very, very much a community driven and community-led project in many ways that I think other people are only now starting to aspire to. But I think that's been our vision for at least since Secret Network went live.
Got it.
Yeah,
So
I'm blown away by the amount of energy and involvement to the secret community.
Yeah, they're very passionate, and I think actually there's no real secret to that except to say that like we've had a very strong ethos as a community around privacy, around human empowerment, around broad participation, and having that ethos and having it like communicated actively and shared is the only secret. Like we have the right people. And when you have the right people, you can organize them in 100 different ways. It can be a very fluid sort of structure in the beginning with committees. The most important thing is like I feel like we've really built the right core that'll be sustainable as we build into the future and start iterating and messing around with some potential governance structures. Anything that helps us just be more effective, efficient, and get to millions of users.
That makes sense. And so, yeah, it seems like maybe unique to other networks I've seen is that you've really opened up the committee structure and filled in slots where people can kind of raise their hand and jump in. That's great because it's often a question we get, which is, I want to participate in governance. How do I participate in governance? And usually the what you're staring down is, well, write a governance proposal and submit a proposal, which, as Gavin can tell you, is a very hard job to do. So this seems like a great way to engage more of the community, and that makes sense. One of the things I wanted to make sure we touch on, you mentioned that, Gavin, you mentioned that you've seen a lot of active participation and a strong community presence. And I think part of that is because your project has been around and been doing research and development for a number of years. And you're now on mainnet. And one of the things that you've done along the way is sort of this token transfer from a previous token to a new token. And I assume that that's a big part of your launch program, which is to get as many people involved in the new network as possible. So I have two questions. One, is there anything you can speak to about either the progress of the token swap? And then two, what is the best way for someone just seeing Secret today and learning about it today to get involved from a token holder perspective?
Yes, one and then the other. So as you mentioned, there is a community-led token swap ongoing between an ERC20 token, ENG, and now the native blockchain token, SCRT. I say coin, but I guess I use coin and token interchangeably a little often. But it's a coin to me. So yes, it's a one-to-one community-led swap in that you could burn your ERC20 ENG and you would be minted mainnet SCRT. And to date, there has not been any like widespread wallet or exchange support. There's not been any support from any of the development teams involved in the network. It's been completely community driven. And even so, we have seen almost a third of the circulating supply, so 20 million ENG tokens have been burned with the equivalent number of SCRT coins minted. And that's happened. I don't have the exact numbers, but I believe where it's at, it's around like 1,500 unique swap transactions and to like 900 unique SCRT addresses. So there's already been very broad participation. There's also been announcements of exchange support. So Binance will support the token swap on behalf of users who currently hold their ENG on exchange. They'll be performing the swap and burn for their users. So all that ENG will become SCRT, which can then be used for staking and so on. So I guess I'm about to answer the second question. So to tie off the first one, there's been very, very strong community participation, and it's all on chain for people to see. Like it's extremely, and as you said, it's a big piece of why we still continue to see such strong community participation in the project. Everybody does actually have a meaningful stake in governance, and of course in securing the network. So as to what can somebody do today who's learning about Secret Network, who wants to support the project, I mean, the obvious answer is to have SCRT, right? To have secrets. And if you have secrets, you should stake secrets. When you're staking or delegating your secrets, now you can participate in governance as a delegator. You can vote on the proposals that pass on chain. You can participate in, the off-chain forms of network governance, even if you're not currently delegating. It's an open conversation. All of our governance calls, all of our committee meetings are open to the public. So anybody can kind of peek in through the front door, see how they can start participating. So either it would be attending committee meetings to get their foot in the door with governance, or getting active in the project, learning more about how you could start developing or start running your own node, or at least learning how to delegate and becoming a stakeholder in the network. But definitely having SCRT, let's say you install a web wallet like Kepler. They make the staking process very easy. You can get your own secret address. You can acquire SCRT, stake it through Kepler. You can then use the Puzzle Report Block Explorer to vote on on-chain proposals, or the Cashmania Explorer. There's there's enough network tooling right now that we try to make it as easy as possible. But obviously, I'm very excited to see what kinds of tooling is coming next that opens up things even further for broad community participation.
That makes sense. One question I have is around developers. We've talked about what developers can do in terms of using smart contracts. Are there any initiatives you have to build up a development community, whether that's reuse of code or it sounds like you have some standardization around SNP 20, things like that. Is there any places that you'd point developers to that you want them to hang out at, or are there things you want them to build? What are you doing around developer community buildup?
So in terms of community buildup, I guess the first thing to start is like when we, before we transitioned into the Cosmos ecosystem, we had a developer environment that people could build secret contracts similar to Truffle. When we were doing that, what we saw really helped was building these building blocks where people could then take and build their application. Because Rust is a language that's new to a lot of people. So what we can do is just to obfuscate the whole Rust part of the contract, but be like, okay, this is standard part. You're gonna keep these things same regardless of what you do. And here are certain things that you can change within a contract to get your application ready. For example, like we had something like a millionaire's contract, which takes inputs and compares. But if you take it and slightly adjust the contract logic, then you can have an auction contract. So giving tools like this to the community really helped us get more and more adoption from the developer side. Right now, we're trying to get there. We have been heads down on launching the mainnet, and I think as these toolings become more available, it's going to be easier for people to get started with. And in terms of how we try to foster the community, we do everything on Rocket Chat. That's usually where we help people to get started and help with their problems. We also have had people from our community that has started contributing to our code base. And these people are people who are in the developer committee that, we meet on Mondays, we explore new ideas. But I guess what I'm trying to say is if someone is interested, they should join our Rocket Chat, join our developer committees, and we are making it more and more user-friendly every day for developers to get started.
So part of being user-friendly for developers or developer-friendly would probably include security as well. I've seen with DeFi taking off, it becomes kind of a honeypot for exploits. How hard is it for developers to create, their applications? Will they have to undergo thorough security audits still, or is there some sort of?
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm.
That's a great question. No, it's a great question. So yes, it's a new environment, and people don't really have a lot of experience working with TEs, even in the traditional sense. So to that effect, we have created a document, and maybe James, you can share the link to that, where developers need to make some assumptions while they're building their secret contracts, because there could be some offline attack vectors. I'll just give you an example, right? Say we're doing voting, and one thing I can do is if I'm running a validator, I can after. So say we vote after 10 votes, the votes are revealed. So if I'm a malicious validator, one thing I can do is I can see the first vote coming in and run on on my local environments, just put 9 fake no's, and then we'll get to 10, and the results will be revealed, and then based on that I can see what the first person has done. So this document kind of explains what the initial limitations are and how you can go around them. So we hope everyone looks into those, and we're available to discuss with people who are building on our network, do feedback sessions, and then provide a comment on things that they should avoid. But at the end of the day, we can't really control everyone. So we try to make as much resources available as possible, we try to be a resource ourselves. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the responsibility of the person who's building the application.
Thanks. I think that answers the question. I'm curious to know about. I recall we've talked a little bit here and there about staking derivatives. My understanding is that you guys are working on something on that in that field. I wonder if there's anything you want to share, or if you're ready to share anything about that yet.
Yeah, so we have a work in progress repo that we're testing. We're hoping that it will become ready in a month or so, and the V1 just allows you to deposit SCRT to a secret contract, and then that contract does the delegation for you. Where we have certain features where like there's a parameter ratio. Right now it's 25. If you put in 100, 25 is put to a liquidity pool, 75 is sent to delegators. So that creates some sort of liquidity for the 3-week unbonding. Obviously there could be bank runs, but at least there's a buffer there. And then that 75 secret that comes into the smart contract is going to be delegated among validators equally right now. And then we hope with this, we have a liquid staking token that can be used in the swaps and the DeFis in providing liquidity kind of applications that we intend to build in the secret network. Obviously, staking derivatives become more valuable as you have more tools in the network that allow you to interact with secrets. So that's how we start. The initial use case, as I mentioned, we expect is people can stake their secrets, get this we call it DX SCRT, like the derivative, and then I expect there to be a pool, like a Uniswap pool that allows people to exchange between DX SCRT and SCRT, and people can provide liquidity to that. In the future, I think people will be able to do contract level governance with DX SCRT. So that means that if you need to vote on something that's not protocol level, and you have bonded tokens, you can use them that way. And we also plan to improve on the current design such that we can add features like there could be a validator bond, because we're really trying to make a system where there is not a validator specific derivative for each validator. So there's not going to be a Figment SCRT and staked SCRT. And in order to keep it unified, because then it's better for liquidity, then we want to add in order to participate, you say you need to put in, I'm making up 1,000 SCRT. And if you get slashed, that amount, is reduced. And if you don't top it up, then you're going to receive less delegations from the pool. Things like that I think create a smoother experience for all stakeholders, but it's going to be a gradual development timeline.
That's very cool. So right now, this hasn't been implemented yet, right? There aren't staking derivatives on Secret Network. So
it's implemented on a testnet, and we're testing it. It's not ready to deploy it on the mainnet, but our expectation is within a month they should be up and running.
Okay, and that's exciting because ordinarily what ends up happening is with the Cosmos Hub and other similar networks, people have their tokens and they stake them and they maybe participate in governance and they collect their rewards, but that's it. They just kind of park them, and there's not much else really to do with them. But this opens up a whole host of new possibilities for what you can do with your secret token, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think one thing that's been to our advantage in terms of governance participation in the early stages is basically the lack of direct liquidity for SCRT. And in the short term, that's a good. In the long term, it's bad. Like in the long term, you can't have mass adoption without mass liquidity. But in the short term, like we've set the norms of our ecosystem, I think very well, where like there is an expectation that people will participate with governance. And even with staking derivatives, there is a path to participating in governance, even if you're utilizing staking derivatives, which is really exciting. And there are potentially some privacy preserving aspects of participating in governance when you utilize staking derivatives. The blog post that was linked in the chat goes into this in a little bit more detail, but it's exciting to see that you can have every piece of the buffalo here, that you can have security for the network and unlock liquidity for the applications, and also preserving privacy on behalf of users for every aspect of how they're interacting with the network. That I think is what's most exciting to see, and the high participation rate, which I think we're going to try to keep that a norm in perpetuity for the network. I think that a lot of our proposals have passed with something like 60 to 70% participation as a floor, which I would like to see continue, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can maintain it.
Low participation for European standards, but we beat the American voting system.
Congratulations on hurtling the lowest possible bar of democracy.
Yeah, you did it. Yeah, you mentioned.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Gavin.
No, I was
just going to shift.
It's very cool. It's very exciting. I'm really eager to see where staking derivatives go. I know it's kind of a untested territory, and I know there's security concerns too. It's kind of a balancing act between the security concerns, the unknowns of what the power that staking derivatives can provide versus some of the benefits which you listed.
But I think like long term, as because if you think about what I want to say is it's a necessary thing to implement, because if you have different use cases for your tokens, like right now, when you look into most of the yield farming and on the Ethereum network, is like it's usually the returns are a function, right? If a lot of people are participating, then your relative return is low. But then if a low number of people are participating, then you make more. And I think it's dangerous to have those kind of like application level yields compete with the network level yields, because it's better that all that underlying asset goes into securing the network, because at the end of the day, like those applications are only as secure as the network.
Yeah, I can't even put up a bond for a proposal without having liquid atoms, for example, on the Cosmos Hub. So, everything in the system is kind of set up to incentivize people to stake to secure the network. But then, if you don't have enough liquid to use them, it's kind of a strange position, right?
Yeah.
So I think derivatives make a lot of sense. And like I said, I'm eager to see how they shape up with what kind of the gold standards that emerge from some of these experiments are.
Great. So thinking of long term, let's look way out in the future, and let's say all this works, and we get something approaching complete privacy in blockchains. Do you think that there's any sort of unintended consequences, or maybe things which we might not expect if sort of privacy wins the day? And privacy by default, or 99% privacy? Is there anything sort of that falls out from that you foresee?
Are you asking me if I foresee anything unforeseen?
Yes, exactly. What are the unknown unknowns? Can you tell me those?
Absolutely, I will list them categorically. No, but you raise a great point, right? Which is that you don't know how people are going to utilize things until they're in the wild and being utilized. And I think like Ethereum's narrative, for example, has evolved many times over the past 5 years. And what was the world computer became an ICO platform, became like a DeFi speculation casino, and as of I think yesterday is now an NFT platform. So it just sort of depends which tweets you're reading on any given day. But the important thing is that all of that could be built on Ethereum. All of it has scaled to varying stages at Ethereum. And Ethereum is one of the only chains in the world that has like actual usage as measured by users, on-chain fees, whatever metric you want to use. It's clearly a platform that's been adopted. So the only thing we aspire to is the same thing, that level of usage, that level of adoption, hopefully with a lot of usability and privacy advantages for users. is everyone going to use Secret Network for building the products that I myself am going to use, or the things that I would like to see built? That's unlikely, because that's not what everybody used the internet for. That's not what everybody used Ethereum for. So probably Secret Network, we'll see things built that we couldn't imagine, and that goes both ways. Probably things that like are going to be like maybe not as net public goods as you would imagine, but I do believe that in terms of the things that could lead to a new era of human empowerment globally that Secret Network can enable, especially like open economies and decentralized financial systems that can protect users while they use them instead of making them victim to endless whale games. I really believe Secret Network will be the network to create that kind of environment, like privacy preserving lending on Secret that ties in with assets that you hold on any blockchain while preserving the privacy of the user who's interacting, or privacy of the lender. It just historically being able to at least provide the choice to have privacy and to protect both people on each side of the transaction, that has been what's created commerce. That's been what's created activity. And it's not really even a question of total privacy versus total public. It's like the option of any privacy is what Secret Network is creating. And the only option we've had historically with blockchains is totally public. So just even moving slightly further down that spectrum, I think, is exciting enough for me to say I'm more optimistic than pessimistic on how it will be used.
Yeah, Ernst & Young apparently says that that's the major thing holding Ethereum back from any sort of broader adoption by any of the larger players, is that there's just absolutely no privacy, and that's like essential for any business.
Yep. Yeah. Paul Brody and like the Baseline guys, like I read their articles that they've been writing about it. I mean, we say all the same things, except we don't have as strong of like an Ethereum centric focus. We really do believe that like there's massive potential for how Tendermint chains interact and IBC, and like we want to be able to support that universe very strongly, while also acknowledging a lot of the existing developers and user base is on Ethereum. So if we can provide bridges between all of these worlds, and our bridge is privacy centric, that's exactly where we want to be. Because at least we know what we stand for. At least we know the differentiator for what you're able to do with Secret as a hub to all of these different ecosystems. That's exciting for us.
And also, I think like there are ways to like make this more, let's say, suitable for different risk appetites. Like for example, when you're dealing with a bank, what you have is like your bank knows who you are. And then there's a counterparty bank, and that bank doesn't really know who you are, but they know that someone they know knows who you are, and therefore you can transact. And like no one gets to see the loan you're taking, like the transactions you're sending, all that stuff. And like this came up, like talking to US-based DeFi projects. So something like interesting for adoption for me is like, can I offer an existing project the ability to give privacy to their users rather than like bootstrapping an entire ecosystem? And a couple of times it came up that because like they don't really have any regulatory guidance, they count on the fact that they have this everything transparent, be hopefully a good antidote. But you can do things like, for example, in the Secret Network, working with a identity KYC provider, you can whitelist certain addresses saying this person has been checked, and you can build applications where only these whitelisted addresses can interact. Now, is that my preference? No, I'm more for the openness, but if someone needs that, then I'm happy to be able to provide the tooling that gets people to move to what we are doing.
It's absolutely choice. Yeah, I always use the word choice. Like just having like privacy is choice. Privacy is consent, and like being able to give users and developers choice is what Secret Network does. We're not of the mind that we're all the way down at the other end of the spectrum completely. We just acknowledge that along the spectrum, there's different needs for privacy, different needs for transparency. So I'm excited just for choice.
I'm curious to know how privacy enables access control. You had mentioned like with Web3 monetization. I think you mentioned Audius as well.
Yeah.
What can Secret Network do to enable that?
Yeah. So imagine this use case where I have some content I put on IPFS or like any decentralized file storage system. As soon as someone knows the address to it or the hash to it, then this becomes public information. Anyone can consume my content. Hence, I can't really monetize it. Then, what's the alternative to that is I can encrypt my content and I can say, hey, here's what it is. If you pay me, then I'm going to send you the decryption key. And when that happens, there's no real way to do that. You can't really do that on an on-chain way because, well, what happens is, say you send me your 10 DAI and I ghost you. Like, what are you going to do about it? It's like, there's really no way around it. And then what people do in order to circumvent that is they do a smart contract where if you pay, you'll get the decryption key automatically. But because smart contracts have public state, even without you paying, anyone sees the decryption key. So again, it doesn't really work. What we can do in our network and what we've done in Padlock is when a content creator when the content is ready before they upload, they can encrypt it and put that key into a secret contract. And that secret contract can be programmed to only release that key when certain conditions are met. Like, obviously the easy one is payments, but you can do things like, you can do engagement metrics. So Audius wants to be able to unlock the content key. Say, if I have interacted with artist A more than 100 times, then I get something unique from that artist. So you can make it very programmatic. And this also opens a dead man switch kind of applications where certain secrets are only released when certain triggering event takes place.
Got it. So we're almost at the end of the hour. I know Gavin has 20 more questions he has to ask, but unfortunately we have to stop for the day. But I'm curious. I like to do this thing called sort of the magic wand question. So I have a magic wand, and John, you have a whole week to build whatever you want to build on Secret. You don't have to do anything else for the whole week. What are you building next week? What's the most thing you most want to see as a part of Secret?
Does it get completed in 1 week, or that's where the magic wand comes into play?
Well, you can take whatever you want.
Well, I want to see a proper decentralized poker where everything is actually provably fair. We had a demo for the test nets. I want to focus on that, and I want to take it to do an actual product around with that. That excites me a lot.
Yep, great. All right, Tor, same question to you. If you want to flip it and say, which project you want to see get integrated with Secret, or something new built, what are you using your magic wand on?
Let's see where to begin. I'm my background before getting into this whole space was in options trading and market making for years. So I'm so interested in all of the stuff that's happening with liquidity right now. And I also have a very, very strong appreciation for how essential privacy is for people who are liquidity providers. You take massive risk as a liquidity provider. And the fact that we can't provide privacy to liquidity providers in these ecosystems, just like I said, a lack of privacy holds back commerce, holds back new kinds of commercial interactions and trade. It's the same thing if you're just looking at individual markets. So I'm very focused on how can we get more adoption from liquidity providers for privacy-centric solutions. I think that there's a fit there because when we write about this stuff, we talk about network effects for privacy. Every additional privacy-enabled application built on the network, then providing even more privacy to the existing applications, like a global anonymity set. So if we can get more people interested, like the people who are already providing liquidity on other platforms and in other ecosystems, onboarding them into our ecosystem, the product for me is liquidity. Even more than anything else, I just want to see liquidity as a product in our ecosystem and everything available to everyone so that they can. It's essential to mass adoption. If it's not liquid, if the thing you need to interact with the system isn't liquid, you can't have the adoption that you want. And
poker
I want
and liquidity. Yeah, poker and
Yeah.
liquidity. I can't wait to see where this network goes next.
Thanks,
Very
guys.
good. Yeah. Thanks for your time. Is there any closing thoughts you want to share with people, or kind of point people in certain directions where to find you guys online?
You can come to our channels, like we're saying. This official secret chat is chat.scrt. .network. The official homepage is scrt.network. The official Twitter is Secret Network on Twitter. Those are the best places to get plugged in. Like I said, the big call to action here is join the community, join one of these committee meetings. We have 5 committee meetings, all 5 days of the week. There's a committee meeting that you can join to start getting hands-on with the ecosystem. Otherwise, like, hit one of us up on Telegram. We also have a Telegram community channel, a community Discord. These are more like unofficial, but still places a lot of us like to stay active because we know that's where people live in this space. So hit us up. We're always happy to chat about this stuff. And thank you guys so much for giving us the opportunity to talk a bit about the vision. We're super, and thank you for everybody in the community who's been in the chat this whole time. We see you.
Yeah, I think one thing I want to say is privacy really is a important building block on the way towards adoption of decentralized technologies. That's what we really care about, and we're, I think, super excited to be working with this. We're blessed to be working with such a great community, and thanks for the opportunity.
Great. Well, thanks for your time. I look forward to seeing the network come to life and seeing all sorts of people integrate with Secret.
Yeah, great chat, guys.
Cheers.
For anyone listening, hop in those channels. They're bustling and everyone's really responsive. So thanks again, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.
See ya.